Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of Remaking Cavestory in C++. This episode is Enemies Part 2. I'm Limeoats. My website is limeoats.com. My Twitter is @limeoats. My GitHub link is here, and my subreddit is here. So last time we implemented enemies, and we got some bats flying around our screen. Let me go ahead and just run what we have so far, in case you don't remember. So we have bats. They look at us when we move. Very nice. They don't do anything yet. They don't move and they don't hurt us. So this time we are going to make it move and we're going to make it hurt us. So a couple details that will be important. The bat's going to move 20 units away from the starting point in either direction. So it's going to fly up and down, and it'll move 20 units away from wherever it starts, down, and then 20 units up. The bat will move by 0.2 units per frame. You'll see what all this means when we implement it. And the bat will do 1 damage to the player. Alright, so what do we have to do? Solution. Add a few new private properties to the bat. Update the update function with the new logic for moving in the bat class. And handle the collision. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to bat.h, well, enemy.h, because our bat class is inside our enemy.h. So go there. And what we're going to do, we're going to add a few new private variables here. We're going to make a float starting x, a float starting y, and a bool should move up. We need to know which way the bat's supposed to move. So we're going to keep track of that with this should move up boolean. So yeah, go to enemy.cpp and scroll down to the bat. So go to update. So before we call enemies, our base class is update, but underneath our play animation we're going to add some logic to move up or down. So the first thing we're going to do, well actually before any of this we need to initialize these variables. So go up to the constructor, we're going to say starting x equals spawn point.x, starting y equals spawn point.y, and should move up. We'll just set to false. It doesn't really matter. It could be true. Whatever. So what we're going to say, so starting x and starting y don't ever change. It's wherever the bat starts when it spawns. The x and y of the bat, though, does change every frame once it starts moving. So it's important that we have starting x and starting y so we know where it actually started from. So we're going to say y plus equals should move up. So if we should move up, we're going to increase y by negative 0.2. Otherwise, we're going to increase it by 0.2. And since the higher the y, the more down it is on the screen, it works. So then we need to set should move up if it goes too far. So if y is either greater than starting y plus 20, that's the 20 that I had in details before, or y is less than starting y minus 20, then should move up equals not should move up. and that'll put it in the right spot. Okay? So that'll change whether or not it should move up if it gets too low or too high, and then it'll start moving the other direction. And that really should be it. If you run this now, and we look at our bats, they should be moving, probably. And there they go. They're moving up and down at a steady pace. You could play around with those numbers. You can make it faster, slower. It doesn't really matter. But they move up and down. When they get down too low, they turn around and go back up. And that's perfect. So our bats are now moving. It's actually a little slower than I wanted it to be, so I'm going to increase it to 0.4 and 0.4. And I'll make them go a little further up and down as well. Let's see if that looks any good. Yeah, it's a little better. Alright, cool. So now the bats move around. So only thing we have left to do now is handle the collision. So there's actually quite a bit that goes into that. So where do I want to start? I guess I'll start in the level class. Go to level.h, and what we're going to do, we're going to make a new function. It's going to be right under here, underneath check door collisions. We're going to say std vector of type enemy pointer check enemy collision, and it's going to take in a const rectangle other. Okay. So that should be good. So let's implement that. Go to level.cpp all the way down to the bottom. This file got really big really fast. So right around here, underneath check door collision, we're going to implement that. Enemy level check enemy collisions const rectangle other. So just like we always do with everything else, set that up. And then I'm going to say for in I equals 0, I is less than enemies.size, I plus plus, if enemies at I arrow get bounding box dot collides with other, then others dot push back enemies at I. So just like everything else, we do that and then we just return others. And now we can call that from our game class. So go to game.cpp down to our update function, and under here I'll make a comment, check enemies, and I'll say std vector enemy pointer other enemies. Also, the way we're implementing this, notice how we're still using enemy pointer and we haven't mentioned bat at all. The goal here is to never mention the word bat. We don't want anything to get specific like that. We want to use enemy as much as we can, so this will work for all enemies created and not just bats. So we don't have to implement this a million times for every enemy we create. So if other enemies equals this level check enemy collisions player.get bounding box size is greater than 0, player.handle enemy collision other enemies collision. Now we need to implement this function, handle enemy collisions. So go to player.h, and down here underneath handle door collisions, we're going to create a void handle enemy collisions. takes in an std vector enemy pointer, other, and we need to include enemy.h at the top. Okay. So now we can go to player.cpp. And actually, before we go to player.cpp, we need another function here too. Fairly unrelated, but it will be related. Void gain health int amount. We'll implement that in the CPP. That's just to change how much current health we have. Alright, so in player.cpp, go down underneath player, not level. Go underneath handle door collision. Where is it? Here we go. Come on. Alright. We're going to say void player handle enemy collisions, taking an std vector of enemy pointers, others, and then we're also going to do our gain health, which is quick and easy. Player gain health int amount, this current health plus equals amount. We could use that for negative health too. We'll just give it a negative amount and it'll take away health instead of give us more. So before we implement handle enemy collisions, we're going to be using a function in there that I want to implement first. So go to enemy.h, and in the actual enemy class, we're going to make a pure virtual function. Virtual void touch player, taking in a player pointer, equals 0. So it's pure virtual. We're not implementing it at all in the enemy class. We'll be implementing it in each of our derived classes. So touch player is going to handle whatever happens when the player touches an enemy with touch damage. Not any other kind of damage. We'll deal with that some other time. This is just for touch damage, and every enemy is going to hurt the player probably. So every enemy needs to implement this touch player function. So this is polymorphism at its finest. We went over this, well, it might have been last episode, I think. Polymorphism, basically, we have a virtual function up top. We implement it in the derived class. And if we use a pointer, it'll take this derived class's function instead of the base class's function. Even though we're going to be using generic enemies everywhere, it'll figure out that it's a bat and use the right one. So that allows us to just have one single loop for all enemies, and that's very, very important. Instead of having multiple different loops, multiple different vectors holding everything, so we just have one big vector of enemies, and that's great. So now let's implement that. Enemy.cpp. Down at the bottom, a bat, void bat, touch player, taking that pointer, and I'm just going to say player, arrow, gain health, -1. Okay? So now we can go to player.cpp again and implement this handle enemy collisions function. For int I equals 0, I is less than others dot size, I plus plus. Others at I, arrow, touch player, this. Since we're in the player class, this is a pointer to the current player. So we just pass touch player this. It'll send in the player and we'll handle that. And even though this is an enemy, again, polymorphism, we'll use the bat touch player instead of any other one. That's great. So now we can go to well, this is all done now. This is implemented. I think we're done. So now we can run it. Well, we're not done actually. There's a problem, but I want to show you the problem. So here we are. Wonderful. We touch them, nothing's happening. We're not losing health. Nothing. Now the reason for that is we actually are losing health. It's just not showing it. That 3 you see is deceiving. The HUD is never actually updating because the player object in the HUD is never getting updated. So if I look at HUD.cpp, we are indeed setting the health number here, like this, but this player is never getting updated. So we need to change that. So I'm going to pass in a reference to our player into the HUD's update. So do that in HUD.cpp and also HUD.h, like this. Okay. And then in game.cpp, when we update the HUD, we're just going to pass in our player, just like that. So now when you run it, when we touch a bat, we still don't lose health. Now that's a problem because I expect it to lose health. So let's figure out what's going on here. So we check enemy collisions with the player. Fine. Then we call handle enemy collisions, passing in our vector of enemies. Go through them all, touch player, and then it'll call the bats touch player. Alright, the problem is that yes, we're passing in player, but we're not actually updating the object still. Player equals player. Now I could very well just use player, but I'm going to assign it and just use the member variable. Doesn't really matter. Now it should work, because I forgot to do that. So now, as you see, when I hit the bat, our health goes down to 0 very fast. We don't have invincibility frames or knockback or any of that stuff. You can add that if you're feeling fancy. I'm not going to bother with that right now. But when we hit the bat, it takes away 1 health at a time per frame that we're touching it. And the red bar goes down nicely, and that's it. So now our bats fly around and hurt us. So our screen looks a lot more lively now. Very exciting. Cool. So that's it. That is it for this episode. So let's go over next time. Next time, all I have written down, guns. It's about time to get guns in here. I don't know when next time's going to be. I have other stuff that I'm also working on, and yeah, but it'll come eventually. If you have any questions with anything, please ask. Please follow and subscribe and do everything. Follow me on Twitch, by the way, if you're listening to this right now. You'll be able to find me live on Twitch a lot. So you can ask me questions there and also watch my other development of other things. So please go ahead and follow on Twitch. Obviously subscribe to this YouTube. Check out my website. I'll go over my website right now actually. Let me open it up. Let's see. Well, I googled it. Limeoats. So definitely check out my website. There's a lot of stuff here that'll be helpful for you. A little bit about me. Donations. I never really mentioned this in videos, but if you're feeling generous and you have some money to spare, please feel free to donate by clicking here or on this little PayPal link up here. Donations will go directly to me, and they help out tremendously. And they help get more work done and give me more time to actually work on the development of these things. So please do that if you can and you feel like being generous. You don't have to at all, but definitely helps me out a lot, so I appreciate that. My current projects are here. Obviously, Remaking Cavestory and C++ is here. Virtual reality, some information about that will be up here. Games that I finished will go here. Check out this one, A Note for Lime. Publications of mine, I have one right here that you can read by clicking here. It's a pretty good read. And my contact information. So please check this out. Of course, links up here. Twitch, very important. GitHub, YouTube, Twitter. Following all that. And yeah, I definitely appreciate that a lot. It helps out a lot. So back to Eclipse. Where to go? Here it is. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you guys soon.